Okay, good evening everybody, it's Martin S51989 here once again, and now, just as I promised you, I'm now going to do my review of the America's Got Talent Wildcard show. Because the show just ended a few minutes ago, and I've scored them based on a score of 0 to 10, and here are the acts that performed again as they all got a second chance. First up was the Kinetic King, and we remember in his quarterfinal appearance, his act was a complete disaster, in that one, Piers and Howie both buzzed that act. Because when he did, despite the hard construction from that, he had ended up using glue in the quarterfinals. But this time, since he got a second chance, since it was a wildcard show, guess what? The Kinetic King, this time, the Kinetic King's act finally went off perfectly, no errors, and you know what? The judges, and he did not get buzzed. And with that, all the judges were now impressed that he got the second chance. And you know what? I guess the second chance can pay off. And I was definitely impressed. So, the Kinetic King, he gets a perfect 10 out of 10 for this act. Because, you know what I call the Kinetic King? It seems he's changed from the greatest train wreck of America's Got Talent to the greatest comeback act in America's Got Talent. So I am impressed with him. So there you go on that. Then next up after that was Those Funny Little People, which is the only non-human act in this competition. They were singing, well, they were lip-syncing to They Might Be Giants, to the song Istanbul, Not Constantinople, as done by They Might Be Giants, which I know, I love They Might Be Giants. My father loves them too. But despite how great it was with the scenery things and with a few others behind the judges, yet Piers ended up buzzing them again because, you know, Piers, this is not one of Piers' favorite acts, but the other two may like it, but yeah, but to me, I think it's a bit too weird to be put through, so they get 6 out of 10 for that. I mean, I do like They Might Be Giants, but I do like the song, but I wouldn't expect Those Funny Little People to do it again. Then next up after that was a kid act. It was Avery and the Calico Hearts. Oh yeah, and one thing, Those Funny Little People were also in the first week of the Top 48 too with that rain thing. Piers buzzed them that too. As I said, next, Avery and the Calico Hearts, they performed Taio Cruz's hit song Dynamite, which, now, in the quarterfinals, they had done a Stevie Wonder song, which Piers said it was a bit, they had great voices, but it was a bit early for them, and Piers' point still proved it to that, and ironically, Piers buzzed this act, too, to keep his right, but at least they're not bad singers, and Howie says that they would be some Saturday morning television show than a headline act in Las Vegas. Well, I think it's right, because it is relevant to Saturday morning TV, because their voices might sound a lot more like the Chipettes. That's from the Alvin and the Chipmunks cartoon series, but either way, at least not bad, but because of the buzz and what Piers' buzz and what Howie said, they got the lowest of the night, only getting 5 out of 10. The next up after that was Seth Grable. And he, as we know, you remember in the quarterfinals, he did a great act, but he ended up losing out in the judges' choice in favor of Professor Splash, which I also love that act too. I did want Splash to be in the semis anyway because of him breaking that world record. But back to Seth now. At least he had some magic, well, even to bring out the big DeLorean car at the end and produce small kid-sized versions of the judges, but at least he didn't get buzzed, but it was pretty good, but probably not good enough, but at least I will give him some recognition. So Seth Grable, 9 out of 10. The next up after that was Siobhan, which she was the only act you remember, she was eliminated in Vegas, but at least it's good that the judges brought her back, and she performed a song called Nobody's Perfect, and at least some of the judges did like the song. Piers said it was a little bit pitchy in some parts, but it was okay. But because of what Piers said, Siobhan only gets 9 out of 10. I don't think she'll go through, but at least she'd get some recognition for that to brought back. Then next up after that was West Springfield Dance Team from Springfield, Virginia. Yeah, just so you know, I first thought that they would have been from that tornado-damaged town of West Springfield, Mass, thinking that they would be doing this to help, even also would help with relief efforts down in West Springfield. You know, we all remember that, but no, they're not from Massachusetts. They're from Virginia. At least they're At least they had to put on some more horror fiend stuff. At least it isn't that scary, and at least Sharon liked it. They were Sharon's pick, but they did have a great dance thing in last week's YouTube show too. But unfortunately, they lost in that judge's choice because Piers and Howie had picked Beth Ann Robinson, who, yeah, I also like. Beth Ann's also a great dancer too, but that's okay. Anyways, but of course, Piers and Howie just didn't quite get it. Probably just couldn't quite get it much as the last one, but at least they didn't buzz. But because Sharon was impressed, they get 8 out of 10 for that. Probably not going to go through, but do get some recognition to come back. Then next up after that was comedian J. Chris Newberg, and no, J. Chris Newberg is not, when I say Newberg, I know, he's not from the town of Newberg, New York, which that town has a completely different spelling than the act, because I won't spell it, but he did a roast to Piers Morgan. Of course, Piers buzzed the act, and he said it was kind of a little bit offensive and inaccurate, but he did say funny, so at least it was, well, at least Piers got some of the funny right, so at least it did impress Piers a bit, but he still was buzzed. The other two actually liked it, but to me, I don't think a celebrity roasting one of the judges is that good, because I can't roast a judge, because that is too offensive. Or as in J. Chris Newberg, one of J. Chris Newberg's songs that he sings, that's probably a bad idea. Yup, and for me, doing that roast is definitely would be a bad idea in my opinion. So 6 out of 10, not gonna go through. But I do appreciate him making a Beatle reference since he did mention Sir Paul McCartney as well. Okay, alright. The next up after that was the Yellow Design Stunt Team. Now, they actually had a great act in the quarterfinals, because that quarterfinals act had them doing a more Alice in Wonderland Tea Party style theme. That was fantastic, and of course that had a little bit of a fall, but they weren't buzzed for it because the cyclists quickly did recover. Well, they had another great story act, and the theme this time was a bit more high seas and pirate-like, and once again, that storytelling really works out for them. So to have BMX bikers tell great stories and put good themes to them, I think that's pretty fantastic indeed. They should keep doing that for the rest of the competition too. So Yellow Design Stunt Team, 10 out of 10. Glad that they were brought back. They were one of my favorites. Fritz indeed. The next up after that was Charles Peacock, who was one of Piers' favorite acts from the quarterfinals. Now, in the quarterfinals, he had done he actually put the balls and did the piano thing, which unfortunately Sharon had buzzed it first, and Howie buzzed Charles then later, because in that Charles had taken off his shirt, which I don't think Chippendale dancing is good. Is a bad idea on the show either. Just like last season when we had Chips Cooney, who got 3 X's for his Chippendale dancing, even though he really was a magician illusionist, but he did that because Chips ran out of illusions. That's why Chips is probably still one of the worst. But enough about that. Back to Charles. At least this time for this quarterfinal for this wildcard act, he went back to the danger and did a little bit of the stuff. Even though, of course, Piers did unfortunately said to Charles that he blew it, but however, he didn't buzz Charles because of him bringing him back. The other two didn't buzz Charles either, but they somehow agreed with Piers. So, but at least he didn't get buzzed this time though, so Charles gets 7 out of 10. Probably not going to make it, but that's okay. the next up after that were the Fiddleheads. They were a bluegrass band. In their quarterfinals in that first week, they had done Billie Jean by Michael Jackson, which wasn't all that great. Well, just okay. This time they did Grenade, by their own version of Grenade, as done by Bruno Mars. Second week in a row that we had a Bruno Mars song be sung on Got Talent, because we know last week Kevin Collis had sung the Lazy song, and as you know, Kevin Collis is already in the semifinals, by the way, so at least that's a good thing. But the Fiddleheads, they did it okay. Unfortunately, Piers buzzed this act because he said that, you know, that the singer, he was just great as a lead singer, but he didn't want the rest of the band. But the other two actually did like it, but unfortunately, as they like to go back, but unfortunately, based on what Piers said, 6 out of 10, probably not going to make it. Then next after that were the Summer Wind Skippers. They were a jump rope act. They had a great jump rope act in that third week of the Top 48 too, which had those dancers and all that. That was really fantastic, and I thought I had high hopes they would go through that week, but unfortunately, they didn't go through. Because in that result show, Nick had, when they were come out to the stage, Nick ended up saying the words, "No one," which unfortunately dashed them, but lucky though, with them being back, and they had their wildcard act this time, it still was jump roping, but they added more elements. They also added a more dangerous element by adding fire to the ropes, and lucky though, they were careful. They were able to jump over the fire and avoid burning themselves, so it is quite a big risk, but it pays off. So I'm glad that the jump skippers are back. So with that, they really stepped it up. So perfect 10 for them. And finally, last but not least, was magician Landon Swank. His magic in that second week in the quarterfinals was just okay. Probably not good enough. And he lost out in the judges' choice in that week to the Smudgy Brothers riding shows, which I do love the Smudgies too. They're a great motorbike act. And Landon, for this time, his walker act, he decided to do his best to see if he could hold his breath under a tank for less than 1 minute. And so we had a timer even go off. The timer did reach 0, but then when the curtain came up, Landon was out of the tank and his assistant was in, which meant his magic helped him get out. So I think with all the big risks that he took of risking his life and then getting out, I think that's the big payoff. So Landon really upped his game in this one. So Landon, perfect 10. So there you go. That's my review of tonight's wildcard show from America's Got Talent. And I didn't do reviews of the first 5 weeks because, well, I wasn't too sure, but I will do reviews of the semifinals and also the finals too as well, just like I did last season. Hopefully they'll be, and I'm sure a lot of my friends will love it. But anyways, there you go on that, and therefore there can only be 4 acts that'll go through to the semis. So in this case, my 4 acts that I definitely want to go through for the semis are the Kinetic King, Yellow Design Stunt Team, Summer Wind Skippers, and Landon Swank. Because I can tell, I tell, a lot of them stepped it up this week, and as I said about the Kinetic King, the reason why I have him, as I keep saying, greatest comeback act of all for the wildcard show. Now, so we will never forget that. So it's a good thing that the Kinetic King really did show big resiliency in this, and resiliency is a great thing indeed. Anyways, that's all I have to say. Hey, about that, I will be voting for the acts in a few minutes, because I have until 1 a.m. Eastern time to vote for them, though, because the lines are only open for 2 hours after the show. But anyways, there you go. That's all I have to say, and I'll see you all again next time for the next video. Good night, everybody.